I filed for divorce the day after my wife tried to manipulate me, and I don't regret it for a second. That confession probably catches you off guard. Most people expect a story of escalation, of fights and counseling sessions, and desperate attempts to save what's left. But sometimes the clearest moments of your life come when someone shows you exactly who they are, and you finally have the courage to believe them. My name is Thomas Bennett. I'm 35, a quality control manager at a manufacturing plant outside Toledo, pulling in $78,000 a year. Not rich, not poor, solid middle class with a steady paycheck and benefits. My parents raised me to understand that marriage means teamwork, not transactions. You work together, you support each other, you build something bigger than either of you could manage alone. That's what I thought Jessica and I had built. Jessica Claire Bennett. She took my name when we married 5 years ago, something that made my old-fashioned heart swell with pride. She's 33 now, with auburn hair that catches sunlight like copper wire and green eyes that used to dance when she laughed. When we met 6 years ago at a community fundraiser for the Children's Hospital, she was managing a retail store downtown, pulling decent money and talking about maybe going back to school for business management. 2 years into our marriage, we made a decision together. Jessica was burning out on retail. The long hours, difficult customers, weekend shifts that ate into our time. I was getting promoted, my income was steady and growing, and honestly, we both liked the idea of traditional roles. She'd manage our home, and I'd bring in the income. Both jobs essential, both equally valuable. I need you to understand this. I never saw Jessica as lesser. Never treated her contributions as less important than mine. She transformed our house into a home, handled finances, meal planning, social schedules, maintained our relationships with both sets of parents. She had structure, purpose, pride in what she built. And I had someone to come home to who genuinely wanted to hear about my day. We met at that fundraiser on a rainy October evening. I was there because my company had bought a table. She was there because she'd organized her store's donation drive. We talked for 3 hours about everything and nothing. Her love of true crime podcasts, my weekend hiking habit, our shared obsession with cooking shows we never had time to actually follow. 6 months of dating, long walks and quiet dinners and conversations that stretched past midnight. I proposed at the same vineyard where we'd had our third date, and she cried in a way that told me I'd gotten everything right. Our wedding was perfect. Small ceremony at that vineyard, 2 weeks honeymooning in Greece, Jessica glowing in sundresses while I played photographer, both of us drunk on possibility and future plans. We came home to our house, my house, technically, bought before I met her, and settled into routines that felt as comfortable as breathing. Friday movie nights with takeout Chinese and her feet in my lap, Sunday morning pancakes that I'd flip while she read me interesting articles from her phone, weekend hikes where we'd pack sandwiches and talk about everything we wanted to do, places we wanted to see, the life we were building step by step. We had our disagreements, of course. Jessica could be stubborn about loading the dishwasher her way, and I had a tendency to leave coffee cups around the house. But we talked things through like adults, compromised like partners, never let anything fester into resentment. Jessica had her monthly girls' nights, high school friends she'd maintained relationships with despite different life paths. I encouraged it. She deserved time with friends, deserved to laugh and gossip and remember who she was before she became half of Thomas and Jessica. I trusted her completely. Now I need to tell you about those friends, because their names will matter later. Brianna Hayes, married to a corporate lawyer, always arriving to gatherings with some new designer purse or jewelry that she'd flash around like proof of her worth. Vanessa Moore, married to a real estate developer, more interested in what her husband could provide than who he actually was. And Tiffany Moore, on her third engagement after 2 divorces, treating marriage like a business transaction with exit clauses. I'd jokingly warned Jessica about Brianna's influence before, how she seemed to measure love by the price tags attached to it. But I never seriously worried. Jessica had a good head on her shoulders, strong values, genuine contentment with our life. Last Friday evening, this was just 1 week ago, I kissed Jessica goodbye as she headed out for girls' night, told her to have fun and not let Brianna talk her into anything crazy. "I'll behave," she promised with a laugh. "I'll probably be home by 11. I watched her drive away in her Honda Civic, completely unaware that I was watching the last normal moment of our marriage disappear down our street. I had no idea that kiss goodbye would be the last normal moment of our marriage. By Monday evening, the woman I married would be gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. What I'm about to tell you, I pieced together later from Jessica's own admissions, details she revealed during our final confrontation when she was desperate to explain, to make me understand how everything went so wrong so fast. The girls met at Bella Vista, that upscale bistro downtown where entrees start at $30 and the wine list requires a second mortgage. Champagne flowing, designer bags displayed like trophies on the table, 4 women in their 30s pretending their problems could be solved with the right credit limit. Brianna arrived first, naturally, flashing her anniversary gift, a Chanel bag worth more than I make in a month. "I told Michael if he didn't step up this year, he'd be sleeping on the couch until Christmas," she announced, like extortion was relationship advice. "Men need to understand what they have to lose." Vanessa laughed, swirling her overpriced wine. "I use the bedroom like a reward system," she bragged. "Perform well, get access, slack off, get locked out. Works like a charm." Jessica told me later she felt uncomfortable, that their words didn't sit right. This wasn't the relationship wisdom she wanted to hear. But then Tiffany leaned forward with the poison that would destroy everything we'd built. "You have to train them, Jessica," Tiffany declared with authority. "Make them work for your attention, your affection, your time. Otherwise, they take you for granted." "That sounds manipulative," Jessica responded, and I can picture her frowning, her instincts fighting against their influence. But they were ready for her resistance. They always are. "Look at your life," Brianna pressed. "You cook, you clean, you manage the house while Thomas goes to work and comes home to everything handled. What does he do to earn that? What does he do to show he appreciates you?" "He provides for us," Jessica replied defensively. "He works hard. The bare minimum," Vanessa interrupted sharply. "Any man should work. But what else? When's the last time he surprised you? Brought you flowers for no reason? Planned something special just because?" I can see them systematically dismantling Jessica's contentment, reframing our partnership as her servitude, my provision as basic obligation, our happiness as her settling for less than she deserved. "You're too easy," Tiffany declared, and this is the line that sealed our fate. "You give him everything he wants, clean house, hot meals, regular intimacy, and ask nothing in return. No wonder he's comfortable. You've trained him to expect everything and give nothing." "So what are you suggesting?" Jessica asked, and later she told me her voice was small, uncertain. "Stop," Brianna said simply. "Stop cooking, stop cleaning, stop making his life comfortable until he starts making yours special." "Withhold intimacy," Vanessa added with a cruel smile. "That'll get his attention faster than anything else." "Make him work for what he's been getting for free," Tiffany concluded. "If you don't take control now, you'll just be his maid forever." Jessica left that dinner conflicted, but the seeds were planted. Her friends had poisoned our well with whispers disguised as empowerment. Saturday morning, I woke to an empty bed. No Jessica curled against my shoulder. No smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. I found her in the living room, still in her pajamas, scrolling through her phone with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, calculating. "Morning, beautiful," I said, leaning down to kiss her cheek. She turned away. The coffee pot was empty, no breakfast prepared. Jessica, who'd been making me weekend pancakes for 3 years, acted like I didn't exist. I made my own coffee, scrambled my own eggs, tried to give her space to work through whatever was bothering her. But it got worse. The house, usually spotless, began deteriorating. Dishes piled in the sink. Laundry overflowed the baskets. Jessica sat on the couch, phone in hand, watching everything fall apart like an observer rather than a participant. Sunday was worse. I worked a full day at the plant, weekend overtime to help us save for the vacation Jessica had been planning, and came home to chaos. The kitchen was a disaster. Takeout containers scattered across counters, our bedroom door closed and locked. I knocked softly. "Jess? Everything okay?" "I'm resting," came her cold reply. Monday evening, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I found Jessica in the living room, still glued to her phone, the house around us looking like strangers lived here. "We need to talk," I said, sitting across from her. She looked up with eyes that belonged to someone else, ice where warmth used to live. "Yes, we do," she replied flatly. "What's going on?" "What's wrong?" I asked. Jessica straightened, and I could see her friend's words in her posture, their poison in her voice. "I do too much around here," she declared. "I cook, I clean, I manage everything while you coast through life thinking that's just how it works." "Coast through life? I work 50 hours a week to support us," I protested. "The bare minimum," she interrupted, and I heard Vanessa's words in her mouth. "I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel valued. I'm not your maid, Thomas." "I never treated you like a maid. We're partners," I started. "No," she said, standing now, rehearsed words flowing like she'd practiced them. "I won't cook for you anymore. I won't clean up after you. I won't be intimate with you until you start showing me that you value what I bring to this marriage." I stared at her, processing what I was hearing. "How? How do I show you?" I asked. The question that ended everything. Jessica's smile was sharp, cruel, completely foreign on her face. "Figure it out," she replied coldly. I stood there for a long moment, looking at this stranger wearing my wife's face. Then I did something that surprised us both. I simply said, "Okay," and walked away. Jessica waited for me to come back, to argue, to beg, to chase her like her friends promised I would. But I never did. That night, sitting alone in my living room, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. Jessica thought she was taking control of our marriage. She had no idea she'd just ended it. While she waited for me to chase her, I was making a phone call that would destroy everything she thought she knew. That Monday night, I sat alone in my living room while Jessica locked herself in our bedroom, probably texting her friends about her successful power move. The silence felt heavy, oppressive, like the air before a thunderstorm. Everything familiar about my home suddenly felt foreign. I thought about the woman I'd kissed goodbye on Friday night, the woman who laughed at my terrible jokes, who squeezed my hand during scary movies, who used to trace patterns on my chest while we talked about our future. That woman was gone, replaced by someone following a script written by toxic influences masquerading as friends. As a quality control manager, I'm trained to identify defects, determine if they're fixable, and decide on appropriate action. System failures don't get emotional responses. They get methodical analysis. The defect was clear. Jessica had chosen manipulation over communication, ultimatums over conversation, games over genuine partnership. She hadn't come to me with concerns or problems to solve together. She'd ambushed me with demands and conditions, treating our marriage like a negotiation where intimacy and household partnership were bargaining chips. The question was whether this defect could be repaired. I analyzed what had really happened. Jessica's friends had convinced her that our contentment was actually oppression, that my provision was somehow exploitation, that her freely chosen role was actually servitude. They'd taught her to weaponize affection, to withhold partnership, to hold our relationship hostage until I performed to their standards. But here's what cut deepest. Jessica had listened to them. After 5 years of genuine partnership, she'd chosen to believe that I was taking advantage of her rather than simply talking to me about feeling unappreciated. She'd decided to manipulate me instead of trusting me. That wasn't a communication problem. That was a character problem. And character problems aren't fixable through grand gestures or improved performance on my part. If I rewarded this behavior, if I played along with the manipulation, bought flowers and jewelry, begged for her affection, what lesson would that teach? That threatening our marriage gets results. That withholding love and partnership is effective leverage. That our relationship can be held hostage whenever her friends whisper poison in her ears. I wouldn't train myself to perform for affection like a circus animal. I wouldn't teach Jessica that manipulation works. I wouldn't set a precedent that our marriage could be threatened every time she felt momentarily dissatisfied. Sitting in that dark living room, I made my decision. I wouldn't chase her, wouldn't beg, wouldn't try to win her back through the very behavior that would validate her friend's toxic advice. I was done. Tuesday morning, I went to work as usual. Jessica was still locked in our bedroom when I left, and I didn't knock. During my lunch break, I made the call that would end everything. "Daniel Warren's office," the receptionist answered. "This is Thomas Bennett," I said. "I need to speak with Daniel about a personal legal matter." Daniel and I had known each other for years through poker nights with mutual friends. Good lawyer, straight shooter, someone I trusted to handle things professionally. "Thomas, good to hear from you," he replied warmly. "What's going on?" "I need divorce papers drawn up," I said simply. Long pause. "That's sudden. Everything okay?" he asked carefully. I explained the ultimatum, the manipulation, the toxic friends. Daniel listened without judgment, asked a few professional questions about assets and timeline. When I finished, his response was immediate. "You're not leaving her," he observed. "She already left you." "Exactly." "How soon do you need them?" he asked. "Tomorrow evening, if possible," I replied. "Consider it done," he confirmed. The conversation was brief, businesslike, final. No drama, no emotion, just two adults handling a transaction that would legally dissolve what had already been destroyed emotionally. I spent the rest of Tuesday and Wednesday maintaining perfect composure. I went to work, came home, handled my own needs. The house remained a disaster, Jessica's test, her proof that I needed her domestic labor to function. She stayed cold, distant, checking her phone constantly. I learned later she was texting her friends, celebrating her successful manipulation, waiting for me to break. She had no idea what was coming. Wednesday evening, I left work at exactly 5 o'clock. Stopped by Daniel's office to pick up the envelope. Sat in my car afterward, holding papers that weighed nothing and everything simultaneously. This was the point of no return. Once I walked through our front door with these documents, there would be no taking it back, no cooling off period, no chance for reconciliation. I thought about the woman I'd married 6 years ago, the woman who'd cried happy tears when I proposed, who'd danced with me at our wedding like we were the only people in the world. I grieved for her, for us, for the future we'd planned that would never exist. But I couldn't mourn someone who'd chosen to become a stranger. I started the engine and drove home. Walking up to our front door, I felt oddly calm. The envelope in my hand contained the legal framework for ending 5 years of marriage. But the real ending had happened Monday night, when Jessica chose manipulation over communication. When she decided to follow her friend's toxic playbook instead of trusting the man she'd promised to love and honor. I walked into that house with an envelope that weighed nothing and everything at the same time. Jessica was on the couch, probably thinking about what designer bag she'd demand next. She didn't even look up when I came in. She should have. I entered our house at 5:30 p.m. to find Jessica exactly where I'd expected. Sprawled on the couch, remote in one hand, phone in the other, surrounded by the deliberate chaos she'd created to prove her point. Dirty dishes covered every surface, laundry spilled from overflowing baskets, and the woman who'd once taken pride in our home sat in the middle of it all like a queen surveying her kingdom of neglect. She didn't greet me, didn't acknowledge my presence. just continued flipping through channels with the same cold indifference she'd shown for 3 days. I didn't announce myself. Didn't try to make conversation. Simply walked to the coffee table and slapped the manila envelope down directly in her line of sight. The sound made her glance over lazily, like I'd set down a bill or some mundane paperwork. "What's this?" she asked. Her tone was dismissive, bored, like she couldn't be bothered with whatever trivial matter I was presenting. "Open it," I replied simply. Something in my voice must have penetrated her indifference because she actually looked at me for the first time in 3 days. My expression apparently told her nothing because she shrugged and picked up the envelope. She opened it with casual disinterest, probably expecting a work document or insurance forms. I watched her eyes scan the first page, watched the exact moment when the words "petition for dissolution of marriage" registered in her brain. Her face drained of all color. The papers slipped from suddenly nerveless fingers, scattering across the coffee table like the fragments of our marriage. What is this?" she stammered. She was laughing nervously, a high, brittle sound that belonged to someone on the edge of hysteria. "Thomas, this isn't funny." "I'm not laughing," I replied flatly. The simple statement hit her like a physical blow. She stood abruptly, papers falling to the floor, panic flooding her features as the reality began to sink in. "This is some kind of joke, right?" she asked desperately. "Some kind of manipulation tactic to get me to—" "No games, Jessica. No manipulation. Just consequences," I answered. "Consequences?" Her voice cracked on the word. "For what? For asking to be appreciated in my own marriage? For choosing to manipulate me instead of talking to me? For turning our partnership into a power game? For listening to your toxic friends instead of trusting your husband?" I explained coldly. She tried a different approach, switching to bargaining mode with desperate efficiency. Okay, maybe I handled things wrong," she pleaded. "Maybe I listened to bad advice, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through—" "No," I said firmly. The word landed with finality that made her stagger backward. "No? That's it?" she cried out. "5 years of marriage and you won't even try?" "You didn't try, Jessica," I replied. "You decided our marriage needed fixing without ever talking to me about problems. You chose manipulation over communication. You weaponized our intimacy and partnership. You treated our relationship like a transaction." Tears were flowing now, but they felt calculated, strategic. "I was confused," she sobbed. "My friends were in my head. They made everything sound different than it was. I didn't mean—" "You meant every word Monday night," I interrupted. "You meant the ultimatum. You meant the manipulation. You meant treating me like a trained animal who had to earn your affection." She tried physical proximity then, stepping closer, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I warned. The rejection shattered something in her facade. She crumpled onto the couch, sobbing harder now, the performance giving way to genuine panic as she realized I was serious. "I love you," she whispered, and for the first time in days, she sounded like the woman I'd married. "Thomas, I love you. Please don't do this. One more chance, that's all I need. I'll cut them off. I'll never listen to them again. "No," I repeated. "This is my home too," she screamed, desperation making her voice shrill. "You can't just throw me out. I have rights." I pulled out my phone and opened the documents Daniel had prepared. "The house is in my name," I explained calmly. "Purchased before our marriage, never added you to the deed. You have no legal claim to this property." Her face went white again. You planned this," she accused. "You've been planning this." "For 3 days," I confirmed, "since you decided to hold our marriage hostage." "I wasn't," she started. "You have 10 minutes to pack a bag with essential items," I cut her off. "Clothes, toiletries, whatever you need immediately. After that, I'm calling the police to escort you off my property." The finality in my voice broke through her denial like a hammer through glass. She stared at me with wide, desperate eyes, searching for any crack in my resolve. She found none. 9 minutes now," I announced. Jessica stumbled toward our bedroom, sobbing, grabbing clothes blindly and shoving them into an overnight bag. She kept trying to talk, to explain, to negotiate. 8 minutes, I called out. "Thomas, please, we can fix this," she cried from the bedroom. "I'll be different, I promise. I'll be the wife you married." 7 minutes, I continued. "I was stupid," she wailed. "I let them poison my mind, but I know better now. I love you." 6 minutes. She was throwing things into the bag now, phone charger, makeup, underwear, her movements becoming more frantic as the clock ticked down. 5 minutes. "This isn't you," she pleaded desperately. "You're not cruel like this. The Thomas I married wouldn't—" 4 minutes, I interrupted. "Throw away 5 years without even trying to—" She continued. 3 minutes. 2 minutes, I announced. She appeared in the living room, bag clutched against her chest, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "One more chance, Thomas," she begged. "Please, I'm begging you." 1 minute, I replied. I walked to the front door and opened it. Cool evening air flowed into our house, my house, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and new beginnings. Jessica stood frozen in the middle of the room, bag in her hands, looking around like she was seeing our home for the last time. Because she was. "Time's up," I declared. She walked to the door on unsteady legs, stopping in the doorway for one final plea. Her voice was broken, barely above a whisper. "Thomas, please. I love you," she whispered. I met her eyes for the first time since handing her the papers. "If you loved me, you never would have played games with our marriage," I replied. "Goodbye, Jessica." She left. I closed the door, locked it, stood there in the sudden silence, listening to her car start and drive away, taking 5 years of my life with her. Then I walked to the kitchen and started cleaning. That night, Jessica called me 17 times. I didn't answer. She texted 43 messages, apologies, explanations, promises. I blocked her number, because I meant what I said. We were done. And in the months that followed, she'd learn exactly what that meant. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Clean, legal, done. I kept the house, my property from before the marriage. We split our joint savings 50-50, which amounted to about $12,000 each. Jessica got her car, her personal belongings, and the clothes she'd packed that final night. No alimony, no ongoing financial obligations, no messy custody battles over assets or children. Just 2 adults legally dissolving what had already been destroyed. Jessica went to her parents that first night, showing up on their doorstep with her overnight bag and a story about how I'd gone crazy, thrown her out without warning, refused to even discuss our problems. But Robert and Linda Moore knew me, had known me for 6 years, watched me treat their daughter with nothing but love and respect. Her father called me the next morning. "Thomas, Jessica told us what happened," he said heavily. "I want you to know, you did the right thing. I'm ashamed of my daughter, and I'm sorry you had to endure that manipulation." Her parents let her stay one night. Then Linda sat her down and told her to figure out her life because she'd destroyed the best thing that ever happened to her. Jessica found a small apartment across town and returned to retail work, starting over at 33 exactly where she'd been at 25. She cut off Brianna, Vanessa, and Tiffany completely. Blocked their numbers, deleted them from social media, blamed them for poisoning her marriage and ruining her life. They didn't care. They'd moved on to the next drama, the next woman to fill with toxic advice and destructive strategies. Meanwhile, I stayed in my house, kept my job, maintained my routines. I didn't date, wasn't ready, didn't need to. I wasn't lonely. I was at peace. For the first time in months, I could come home without wondering what manipulation awaited me, what game I'd be forced to play, what ultimatum would greet me at the door. I'm 35, divorced, and honestly, I'm at peace. Do I miss Jessica? I miss the version I thought I married, but that version was apparently an illusion, or at least easily corrupted by the right whispers from the wrong people. My final message is simple. Don't let toxic people poison your relationship. Don't let friends convince you to manipulate your partner. And if your partner tries to control you through games, ultimatums, or emotional blackmail, walk away. Marriage is supposed to be partnership, respect, communication, teamwork. The moment Jessica decided to play games, to manipulate me, to withhold affection like I was some trained animal performing for treats, that was the moment it ended. Life's too short to play games. I'm living proof of that. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone you love, because loving yourself has to come first, always.